Kia ora everyone. I would like to share with you a story of failures and successes. The story of the Alexander piano. If you told me I was going to build a piano when I was 10 years old, I would have said you were mad. When I started telling people that I was going to build the world's largest piano at age 16, everybody told me I was mad, and people really went out of their way to do so. So how did I build the Alexander piano? The first question asked, and a question that I seldom answer the same way twice, is there are many key events that took place. As a boy growing up in Timaru, I was shy, I got bullied, and I wasn't at all academic. But when I had an interest, it was intense, and I figured out how to do things. Lego, tree huts, bushwalks, river rafts, plumbing and electricity are a few keywords in my childhood, and definitely chapters in a book that I should write one day. But these keywords are associated with experiences that have shaped the person I am today. Music didn't become a part of my life until I was about 11, and it came as quite a shock to relatives when they learnt that I was getting piano lessons. My interest for the instrument grew, and soon I was asking my teacher crazy questions like, how long would a bass string be if there was no copper wound around on it? She simply said the string would be so long it would go on forever. But for me, this wasn't a definite answer, and I had to go and find out for myself. So I went home and I grabbed a couple of waratahs, and I banged one in here and one in over here, and for the piano wire, I unravelled one strand of a ship's hawser, which took ages, it took forever, and I strung up the longest string I could, and found out that the string was actually 22 feet long. I used rocks as movable bridges, 22 feet long. And this was incredible, this was amazing. But what was more unique was this amazing tone that I could get from the bass string. It was so deep and sonorous. And that was to be the key piece of inspiration for the next idea. And I simply asked myself, why? Why did they not build pianos to get this kind of tone? It was so different. So, funnily enough, construction was to begin within the year, and at the time I was a 16-year-old teenager who couldn't even write a formal letter. Public speaking was a no-no, and I was still very shy. I was fortunate enough to have a very creative neighbour who, on an idea, simply let me take over her one-car garage and boot the car out so I could start building a piano. The experiment gave me proof that it was possible to build this piano. I knew what I wanted to achieve, but I had no idea how. And with that, in confidence that might have been ignorance, I thrust myself into a project that was to last 4.5 years. At the beginning, I simply constructed a large case and made everything in proportion, using a mixture of second-hand, seasoned and unseasoned timbers, a lot found in rubbish skips. The piano is as big as it is, 5.7 metres, because the shed was that size. And by chance, the case dimensions were just right, thank goodness, as I was to find out a bit down the track. Some parts did need to be altered as I was learning more and more. Eventually, I did need a bigger space, and our friends on a farm bravely offered to house it. With more space and a workshop, I was able to do so much more. Little did they know what they were in for. I knew pianos had soundboards, and I sort of knew how they worked, but I thought to myself, how hard could it be to make a really big one? Well, it turns out that the way I did it was completely different than what a piano manufacturer would, but still worked nonetheless. More and more people were finding out what was being made, which meant donations were coming in. As the project progressed, the donations became greater. More and more people were finding out from further away. There were many huge challenges building the Alexander piano, one of which were the keys. The keys had to be twice as long as ordinary keys. This presented massive problems like warping and took me 4 different ideas and a considerable amount of time to overcome. Once that was done, the next step was to build an action. This was slightly more straightforward, as you just buy the parts in standard and assemble it. Nonetheless, a major component is there are 6,000 odd individual bits that go into an action. After that was made, I was then able to design the string scale, the bridging, and the plate around it. This was all scribed onto a sheet of tin, which engineers could use to draw the plate onto a computer and then cut it out. Few plans were ever produced, and the project was very much hands-on. People ask me, how did you know how to build a piano? And the truth is I didn't really have a clue. I learned most of what I know now on the project using intuitive problem solving, trial and error, inspiration, imagination, and quite a bit of luck. Having little experience meant that problem solving was from a completely different angle. I'd pull pianos to pieces to figure out how they worked. There were, of course, professionals and critics that weren't interested in getting involved. They would say things like, "You can't do that, it's not possible, Steinway tried." I don't know if they did try or not, but these comments only made me more determined. After 4 years and a lot of time and trial and errors, I could see that the end was near as the strings were going in. And it was a rather strange experience because as the notes were going in, I just wanted to play the piano more, but I couldn't play it because all these notes and all those notes went in and I had to put them in. You can imagine how excited I was to play the first piece of music, and words cannot describe how I felt when it was unveiled to the public for the first time. Since its completion, we've had 14 concerts and thousands of visitors. With the help of Main Freight, we've been able to move the piano around the country. Here are just a few great moments. If you were wondering, those recordings were done on the big piano just not so long ago. I guess you could say I dreamed a dream, and I had no idea how things would turn out, and all the wonderful people that I would have met and brought together, and all the great events that we've had since. If you really want to achieve something, you don't have to be the most qualified person in the world. If you really believe in something, anything can be possible. Thank you.